What's happening, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Recap. Glad to have you guys here. So we're going to jump back to the 90s and touch on Independence Day. Yeah, okay, so you've seen it. I know. Or at least most of you have seen it. But guess what you haven't seen? Our recap on it. So kick back, enjoy the ride, and let's do this thing. Spoilers ahead. In this iconic opening, we start on Earth's moon, focusing in on a plaque that highlights both the moon landing and the theme of the movie, mankind's dedication to world peace and harmony. Kind of. We cut to New Mexico, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence suit. We're in between rounds of mini-golf. The guy on shift picks up a signal of some kind. All excited, he calls his boss and breathes down to the line. If you're confused by whatever that sound is, don't worry, you're not the only one. His boss, though, seems to know what it is, as he's quick to get out of bed and hurry into the office, where the same worker announces with glee,
"Coming from the moon."
Even more exciting than that, whatever it is, it's coming right for Earth.
Kill me here.
Next, we're at the Pentagon. William Gray is shown images of an approaching object that is not only huge, but it's also slowing down. In light of this recent development, he does the only thing that makes sense, calls the president. The president's currently at home, spending the morning with his wife and daughter. Seems like a nice enough guy, probably competent if not a little young to be the leader of a free world. But they do a good job setting him up as a family man before he gets the call.
Say that again.
Now, seeing as this is a Roland Emmerich movie, we're gonna have a bunch of random characters that kind of relate to the plot, but also sometimes don't, so just try and keep up. We cut next to David, the always charming Jeff Goldblum, and his father, Julius, playing chess in the park. Julius is concerned for David because even though he is a brilliant scientist, he's wasting his life in a dead-end job at a TV station. More on that later. He's also divorced, but not dating, and seems to prefer spending his time with his dad. Some might call that being a good son, but Julius seems to think of it as a character flaw. Now from the park, David hurries to work, where he's informed that the TV station is down, and no one knows why.
So fuzzy.
But David's smart, and he manages to figure out that problem. Oh, wait, no. When he actually takes a look himself, he declares,
It's impossible.
"No, David, it's Independence Day, try and keep up." Time for the next random story. This one takes place in the middle of a desert somewhere. A young man, Miguel, is doing all he can to keep his family's head above water. Unfortunately, his father, Russ, is a drunken loser who doesn't seem to care about his family's issues. Apparently, he was kidnapped by aliens when he was younger. Now, as all this is happening, that huge spaceship headed for Earth is starting to break into smaller disc-shaped ships, which start to head towards the planet. Now, back on Earth, the president and his cronies are arguing about what to do. As you can probably imagine, these ideas range from bad to worse. When in doubt, blow it up. Nice. Their brilliant ideas are cut short when the president is informed that one big ship has now broken into a dozen smaller ships, each 15 miles wide. Worse, they're about to enter Earth's atmosphere. And indeed, a montage now cuts to the several different places all over the world, showing these gigantic ships slowly dropping down to the Earth, sending the entire world into a panic. We make sure to check in on all the characters we've met so far just to see how they're handling it. The president has no idea what to do. David's over here busy trying to figure out why the TVs aren't working, and takes a little while to notice the impending invasion.
Everyone not to panic.
Miguel's probably starting to think that maybe his crazy father isn't so crazy. In fact, it's this exact moment that his father is being teased in a bar. Yeah, they're all having good laughs at Gus, only for one of the ships to suddenly appear in the sky. At least it's nice to know these aliens have good dramatic timing and showmanship. A few shots of the alien ships arriving now just to remind us that these things are massive, dangerous, and a little bit intimidating. I don't know about you, but I think the world needs a cocky black pilot right about now, huh? Somebody with attitude, but also charming, and just a touch of daring to save the day. You know anybody like that? Enter Will Smith, or as he's known in this movie, Steven Hiller. He's a pilot for the US Air Force, but this morning he's trying to sleep in. When he does eventually wake up, he stumbles through the house and peeks out the window where he catches the commotion. It takes him wandering outside to pick up the paper before he finally sees that spaceship hovering over his house. And when he does, well, I think it's time to get to work, Steve. This planet isn't going to save itself. Back at the newsroom, and David has come upon a massive discovery. He realizes that the interruption of the TV broadcast is actually a countdown timer being sent between the spaceships. But what happens when this countdown reaches 0? David then catches sight of the president making an address to the country, and he realizes that this is the guy he needs to speak to, or rather his ex-wife, who just happens to be his secretary. David gives her a call and tells her to just get out of the White House right now.
Yeah, well, they canceled it.
Back to Stephen, sorry. He's getting ready to go to work, but before that he argues with his wife a little bit. She doesn't want him to go, but he tells her that he has no choice. Clearly. She argues and he argues back. Then they have a little makeup session and it's off to work. Now, despite the impending threat of alien invasion, Stephen over here has other things still on his mind. In particular, he's thinking of proposing to his wife. He shows his friend the ring, who goofs around a little with him. The friend then tells Stephen that he likes Jasmine, but, well, she's a stripper. And indeed, we cut to Jasmine working at that club, which is surprisingly empty. I don't know what's going on. If I thought I was going to die, that'd be the first place I'd be.
Tiff, I really don't want you to go up.
Meanwhile, David and his father rock up to the White House so he can seek out his ex-wife. He does a little something with his phone and manages to track the wife and call her up. A couple of things are happening at the moment. The president and his men are overseeing first attempted contact with aliens. Also, David has managed to get himself into the White House so that he can speak to the president and show him what he discovered. Well, this should be easy, but as we soon learn…
You punched the president?
Yeah, it turns out David and the president have some history, but they breeze through this for long enough so that David can show the president what he found. That the aliens are using our own satellites to relay a message between one another that is in fact a countdown timer. And just to add a little tension, there's less than 30 minutes left. It's pretty bad. And even worse, that attempted contact the president and his men were engaged in fails tremendously. How tremendously? The aliens blow up that helicopter that was sent to engage it. Between this and David's message, the president realizes that it's time to go. Finally.
Is my wife in the air?
This evacuation seems to be nationwide as we cut through various cities, seeing the people in a state of panic as they try and escape. Unfortunately, it's too little too late. David's watching the timer count down, and when it reaches 0, and it's time for a bit of destruction porn.
Time's up.
Take a moment to yourselves here to enjoy a few shots of alien ships blowing the hell out of various landmarks. You've seen it all before, but, well, it's a Roland Emmerich movie, so take a moment. Well, a lot of people died. Lucky though that Jasmine managed to find her way into a tunnel before being engulfed in fire. Her dog wasn't so… here he comes. Yeah, the dog made it too, thank God. A quiet moment here as that president reckons with what just happened, how much he's to blame for it. Personally, I think he's been a little hard on himself, but his wife is apparently also missing, so naturally he's upset. Back to Stephen. Him and the other pilots are debriefing on their impending attack of the nearest spaceship. Where the others are joking around, Stephen is nothing but serious. Maybe not too serious, but he looks like he knows what he's doing. And indeed, once that debrief is done, it's Stephen and the others climbing into the jets, taking off to kick some alien ass. And they give it their best shot too, they really do. With the president watching on, the jets line up and fire those missiles at that giant spacecraft. But they don't so much as breach that perimeter. And from there, things only get worse. The aliens come back at the fighter pilots with their own alien spaceships.
Missiles have been fired.
These things are faster and more agile than human ships. Plus, there's about 100 more of them. They fly through the human jets and pick them off one by one. It's a slaughter.
Mr. President, what should we do?
Yeah, good advice. Stephen and his buddies attempt to flee, but they have a couple of aliens on their tails. And it's a goodbye for Stephen's friend, who freaks out and gets himself blown up.
Right, get him out of there.
But Steve over here's an ace pilot. He's dodging and ducking and leads that alien spaceship away into a canyon, where he manages to do a few more maneuvers which sees that ship crash while he shoots himself to freedom. But he ain't done yet. With the alien ship crashed right near him, Stephen approaches the ship and pops it open.
Hey! Get off! Get off!
Now, time to touch base with the B-plot characters. Jasmine has managed to survive, and she's found a working truck. Even better, after a little bit of driving and rescuing randoms, she comes across the president's wife. That's lucky. Miguel and his family too. They're packing up and leaving with the convoy. But they're managing just fine. Back to Air Force One, the brain's trust is trying to decide what to do. Back to Steven, dragging the knocked out alien through the desert, throwing back some sassy one-liners as he does it. Lucky for Steven, a moment later in that convoy that Miguel's a part of rocks up out of nowhere. Gus pulls up and asks Steve if he needs a ride. And we're at Area 51, finally. The president's clearly a little pissed, but he gets a tour nonetheless. As we move through the base, we get to meet the head of Area 51, the charming Dr. Oken.
What a pleasure.
He takes them to where a famous Area 51 spaceship is, and wouldn't you know it, it's the same exact one that the aliens are using. Unfortunately, they don't know too much about these aliens. And these humans over here can't really replicate the power of those aliens, so none of the tech works. Well, that was the case up until a few days ago. With the arrival of the aliens, everything's back on. All right, President, calm down. He was just saying. And now things only get better from here. Not only do they have a spaceship, but they have an actual alien. Now, this dude's been dead a long time, but they've discovered that they function a lot like humans, which is probably why they've come to Earth. Although weirdly, they use telepathy to communicate. But we'll get to that later. It's then that the president decides to heap some real pressure on David. He tells him to show the scientist what he discovered and see if together they can figure out a way they might just beat these guys. Honestly, no pressure at all. A minute later, and Steven and his convoy just happen to arrive at Area 51. The guards give them a little beef before they get in, but one look at that alien and it's all smooth sailing. Now with a fresh alien on site, Dr. Oken can't wait to cut that thing open. And indeed, he does just that. Him and the whole team go all Hannibal Lecter on that thing that Steven brought.
All right.
But this one's still alive, and it quickly stages that counterattack. It's now that we see those telekinetic powers taking over Dr. Oken over here, and they're speaking through him like it's a straight-up horror movie scene. To make matters worse, the alien then goes crazy and uses some kind of mind trick to paralyze the president. That's one step too far, and earns that alien taken down by a spray of gunfire. Score 1 for the humans.
Let's nuke the bastard. Nuke 'em.
Before the nukes go down though, we get a little character building. David and his wife reconnect, mostly over how unambitious David was. It seems that he genuinely loved her, but he wasn't bringing home enough bacon for her to love him back. Steven too wants to know where his wife is, so he casually steals a helicopter.
Head to targets.
Now, finally, it's time to drop those nukes. This scene's going down exactly as you're probably expecting. It's built up in a big way. When the bombs go off, there's plenty of premature celebration as everyone's thinking the job's done. But then, when that smoke clears, we see that the nukes did absolutely nothing, save for destroying the environment. But we're gonna look past that for now. It's not all bad news though. Somehow Steve's managed to track down his wife, and we get a touching moment as they run to meet one another, hug and kiss and all of that.
You're late.
For a minute, you might even forget that the world's about to end. The president's happy though, as his wife's alive. No, wait, no. Well, she's alive right now, but she's dying. A touching moment as he reconciles with the impending death of his wife, comforts his daughter, and his whole world crashes down around him. But David must have missed the memo. He's drunk and depressed that the world's gonna end. His father attempts to console him, and even manages to get him on his feet with the innocuous line. To us, this line's pretty standard, but to a genius like David, well, it's given him an idea that might just save the day. He calls the president and the military into a hangar where he set up an experiment.
My fault.
With a Coke can balanced on the edge of the ship, he asks one of the guys. The bullet bounces off that force field as we all knew it would. But then David fiddles with that computer, asks that army guy to shoot again, and this time that bullet goes right through that shield and knocks the can down. When everyone asks what he did, he says,
We plant a virus.
what he actually means is that he gave the spaceship a virus, one that brought down its defense system. What's better is that he's pretty sure he can hook it up so that it affects every single ship that's currently over Earth. It's a good plan, but as one of the generals point out, How exactly are they going to infect the mothership with this virus? Someone just has to fly a ship up to space, dock it in the mothership, and from the inside, it shouldn't be too hard to spread that virus. And Steven steps forward, volunteers to fly that alien ship. He's seen it in action, and he believes he can handle it. Sure, why not? As Nimziki pointed out, they don't have the manpower to organize such a large assault. But with the rest of the world chipping in where they can, and indeed, next we get a couple of cutscenes that show other countries finally starting to pull their weight, as they're clued in on the plan to take down these aliens once and for all. Now, because this is Roland's movie, he has to sort of connect all the characters together. As that president tries to organize an attack, they realize they don't have enough men to man the jets. Thus, they put out a call for anyone with flying experience at the base. And, wouldn't you know it, old crazy Gus puts his hand up. The plan's underway. David and Steve get a final debrief in which they learn that once they plant the virus, they'll only have 30 seconds to get out of that ship. And obviously, the two wives don't want their husbands to go up there, but a little reassurance, as well as a shotgun wedding with Steven and Jasmine, and the men are ready. Now I know what you all been waiting for, the president's speech. With the plan ready to start, the president climbs up on that little box and gives your classic American movie saving the world speech. Here's a little taste for you. From there, we get a couple of touching moments as each of the people we've met say goodbye to their prospective partners and family members. Even Miguel finds it in himself to tell his father that he loves him before he takes off. And oh yeah, just for kicks, the president decides he's gonna fly a jet too. America. David and Steven then take off. It's a little bumpy to get going, but soon they're cruising. That is until they reach that mothership, and it takes over their controls. Well, now they're slowly guided into the ship as that fighter jet lines up in front of that alien spacecraft ready for themselves to engage it. But they can't attack, not until that virus is planted. David and Steven are inside the ship. It's kind of beautiful, and they take a moment to marvel at it. But then they notice that some aliens have seen them. Without time to waste, they get about uploading that virus. Back on Earth, the fighter jets begin to fire their missiles. Only the shields are still up. A moment of panic, but the president decides to try one more time, and wouldn't you know it, that one gets through. The attack looks like it's going to go well at first, with all the missiles hitting their targets. Back on the ground, the people take cover and pray for victory as they wait to see the results. Only there's a problem.
Delivery complete.
The missiles didn't do enough damage, and now the ship's opening up to return fire. These alien ships are upon them too. They're out of missiles. They see an opening to attack at the base of the ship, but everyone's out of firepower. Oh wait, it's Gus to the rescue. He doesn't have a missile, but he has his ship. Throwing caution to the wind. Gus arches the plane underneath the ship and flies right into its belly. He screams as he flies his jet into the hull of the ship and explodes that thing on impact. This sets off a chain reaction, which sees the inside of the ship blow into pieces. People are cheering and crying out. We get some uplifting hero music as the jets fly off and the ship blows up in the background. Back on the ship, David and Steven settle in, thinking that they're stuck there. They light up some cigars and ready themselves to blow the ship up from the inside, killing themselves but also taking out the aliens. But as luck would have it, they manage to pull their ship free, just as they start to fire and drop their own bomb. They fly through the ship as it blows up behind them, officially killing the aliens for good. You know, unless there's a sequel. Back on Earth, the president and his men move to pick up David and Steven. They crashed in the middle of the desert where they're quickly met by their loved ones. It's all smiles and hugs, and even the president manages some kind words. Not bad at all, Mr. President. Not bad at all. They stand about and watch the spaceship blow up. And since this is Independence Day, and that wraps it up on Independence Day, released by 20th Century Fox in 1996. Directed by Roland Emmerich, starring Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, and Bill Pullman. Thanks for sticking around, and as always, till next time.